The artificial moon Echelon Prime floated in the dark silence of space, shining like a glass jewel above the galactic center. It was not a place of beauty, but of politics and power. Within its great council chamber, representatives from every major species in the galaxy gathered under a tall, domed ceiling lined with silver and light. Tensions filled the room. For over 6 months, the Galactic Council had met in long, bitter sessions, trying to stop what everyone feared, the collapse of peace. At the heart of the conflict was one species, humanity. Commander John Walker sat alone at the edge of the council floor, wearing his black diplomatic uniform. He was tall, calm, and tired. A deep scar ran from his cheek to his jaw, a reminder of wars past. His eyes didn't move much. Only his hands, resting on the table, tapped a silent rhythm. The last human among hundreds of voices, Ambassador Myra Lang, head of Earth's diplomatic corps, stood before the council one final time. Her voice was calm, but everyone could hear the sadness in it. We offered solutions. We showed restraint. We warned of consequences. Still, our people are treated with suspicion. Our worlds threatened. Our ships watched like enemies. This is not diplomacy. This is fear and silence wearing masks. Several alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Zorithian Archon Valzik narrowed his red eyes and hissed softly. Lang's final words echoed through the chamber. Humanity will not remain where it is not trusted. As of now, we leave the Galactic Council. Our space is closed. Our future is our own. The chamber erupted. Some delegates shouted. Others tried to object. But the human delegation had already turned and walked out. John remained seated, silent. He had not been ordered to stay, but he chose to. Someone had to remain, a witness, a thread of connection, a reminder. Later that night, from the outer ring of Echelon Prime, John stood alone at the observation deck. He watched the last human ships vanish into the void. Great carriers and colony ships moved in perfect silence, disappearing through the warp gates one by one, leaving no signal behind. The stars felt colder now. Behind him, the door slid open. It was Councillor Rin, a feathered envoy from the Abulon species. "You should go with them," she said gently. "I can't," John replied. "Someone needs to stay. The galaxy just lost its balance. Something's going to tip it over." Rin lowered her eyes. "The Zorith Dominion is already speaking of filling the vacuum. Valzik is not known for patience." John nodded. He had served during the Zorith-human border wars 20 years ago. He knew Valzik's mind, always calculating, always aggressive. "Let him speak," John said. "But I'll be here, watching." Across the stars, thousands of systems received the same quiet message from Earth. "We will not return. Leave us be." With humanity gone, silence grew louder. Days passed, then weeks. The Galactic Council limped on, but the absence of humanity was felt in every corner of the chamber. Their seat remained empty. A black flag placed across the table where the Earth emblem used to shine. No one dared move it. No one dared speak of what might come next. Commander John Walker kept his position on Echelon Prime. Though no longer an official envoy, he was still respected, if not fully trusted. Some called him a remnant. Others whispered that he was a spy. John didn't care. He had a job to do, even if he had given it to himself. Tensions in the galaxy were rising. Trade routes once protected by human fleets now ran open and vulnerable. Pirate raids surged near the outer rings. Smaller systems, once allies of Earth, began to panic. Fear was spreading like smoke through the stars. One evening, John met with an old contact in a quiet corner of the station. Yavris, a reptilian smuggler turned informant. They sat across from each other in a dim, empty dining hall near the maintenance sector, far from curious ears. "You're not safe here anymore," Yavris said, his voice low and rasping. "Valzik is pushing hard. He says the humans left to plan a secret strike. He wants the council to vote for preemptive action." John leaned forward. "That's a lie. We left because we were forced to. Earth gave up on diplomacy." Yavris tilted his head. "Maybe, or maybe they're building something out there in the dark. Something big. I hear things, John. Ships seen far beyond the rim. Signals that don't match any known code. John narrowed his eyes. You think it's human? I think, Yavris whispered. It's something nobody understands. And people like Valzik, they fear what they don't understand. Back in his quarters, John reviewed intercepted signals. As a former fleet officer, he had access to low-level surveillance systems, still feeding back to Echelon Prime. He noticed something strange, fragments of messages coming from abandoned listening posts near human space. Most were static, but one repeated 3 words in a broken looping pattern. Project return, confirmed. He didn't know what it meant. The next day, the council met in emergency session. A Zarithian military station had been attacked and destroyed. No survivors. The Dominion blamed it on a hidden human fleet. They showed a grainy recording, large vessels moving in formation, seen briefly before the station went dark. John watched the footage. Something about it felt off. The ships were fast, but the angles were wrong. The signature emissions weren't standard for Earth Navy vessels. He stood and addressed the council. This could be anyone. Pirates, rogue AI, even a false flag. Humanity wouldn't strike first. Valzik stood as well. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned. You speak as if you still represent Earth. You do not. You are a man without a world, Walker. I still know my people, John said firmly, and I know a trap when I see one. Valzik did not respond. He simply turned and walked out. The other delegates followed, some whispering nervously, others angry. Later that night, John sat alone in the observation deck. The stars remained quiet, but in his gut, he knew something had shifted. Someone was pushing the galaxy toward war, and using humanity's silence as the weapon. The void was no longer empty, it was watching. News of the destroyed Zareth station spread like fire through the galaxy. Each day brought new fear. Small colonies sent out distress calls. Merchants rerouted their ships away from the old human sectors. Independent worlds demanded answers from the Council, but the loudest voice came from the Zareth Dominion. High Archon Valzik stood before the Council 3 days after the attack. The chamber was tense. His tall figure, dressed in ceremonial black armor, looked more like a warlord than a diplomat. His voice echoed through the room, sharp and confident. This was not an accident. The destruction of our station is not a mystery. It is a message, he said. The humans have returned in secret. They hide behind silence, but prepare for war. I say no more waiting, no more pretending. The Dominion will act. Murmurs spread among the councillors. Some nodded in agreement. Others remained silent, unsure. The balance was tipping. Commander John Walker sat quietly, watching Valzik with cold eyes. He had seen that posture before, on battlefields, not in council halls. This was not a leader seeking peace. This was a predator testing the edge of the cage. After the meeting, John walked the lower corridors of Echelon Prime, searching for answers. He needed facts, not speeches. He contacted Yavris again, this time through secure back channels. They met in an old docking bay used for decommissioned ships. It smelled of rust and frozen fuel. I traced the signal you found, Yavris said, pulling a small device from his coat. That repeating message, Project Return confirmed, came from the edge of the old Sol outpost line. That's deep into abandoned space, John replied. No one's supposed to be there. Exactly, Yavris said. But someone is, and I picked up another signal just 2 days ago. A voice transmission, very brief. I think you should hear it. Yavris played the message. It was broken and crackling, but John could just make out the words Phase 1 underway. Ghost Fleet, holding position. The voice was human. John felt a chill. Ghost Fleet, he repeated. That was a Black Ops project, cancelled decades ago. No records remain, unless they never cancelled it, Yavris said. Back at his quarters, John dug through his old files, what few he had access to. He remembered Ghost Fleet from his early fleet days. It was supposed to be a test, unmanned ships, hidden in deep space, ready to respond if Earth ever fell. But Earth hadn't fallen. It had simply walked away. The next day, Jean returned to the council with a request. I ask permission to launch a private investigation into the old Sol outpost line, he said. If there are human assets still active, I will find them, and I will prove that we are not preparing for war. Valzik laughed openly. And if you find a fleet ready to strike, then I'll be the first to raise the alarm, Jean replied. But I won't let fear write the future. Councillor Rian of the Avalon spoke up. Let him go. If he finds nothing, perhaps we can calm this fire. With heavy debate, the council agreed. Barely. As John prepared for his journey, Valzik's forces began to mobilize. Warships lined up near the edge of Zareth territory. Supply lines were reinforced. Old alliances were called upon. The Dominion was not waiting. In his ship, the Halcyon Blade, Jean stared out at the stars. Somewhere beyond the edge, answers waited. So did danger. Valzik was rising, and the galaxy was tilting toward war. Commander John Walker guided the Halcyon Blade through uncharted space. The stars here were dim and scattered, far from any trade routes or active systems. The region was once part of the Sol outpost line, now abandoned and left to the silence. He traveled alone, except for his ship's onboard AI, Centra. She was an old Earth model, efficient, sharp, and loyal. The kind of voice that didn't ask questions unless it had to. Entering dead zone, Centra said. No active communications, sensors detecting radiation scars, likely remnants from old engine trails. John nodded, gripping the controls. We're getting close. As the ship moved deeper, the light from distant stars faded. A cold darkness surrounded him, pressing against the glass like a waiting breath. Then something appeared, at first just a shadow. But as the ship got closer, the shadow became shape, then structure. A massive vessel drifted silently in the void. It was pitch black, built with no external markings or lights. Its design was human, but unfamiliar. It had no windows, no ports, just smooth plating and strange sharp angles. It looked like a weapon disguised as a ghost. John's heart beat faster. Scan it, he ordered. Centra replied. No life signs, no heat, but it's powered. Energy signature is steady. Internal systems active, but locked down. He activated the docking module and approached cautiously. The ship responded with a faint signal, an old Earth Navy code from the Ghost Fleet era. Once aboard, John stepped into a long, dark corridor. The walls were lined with cold steel. Lights flickered weakly overhead, triggered by his presence. The ship was quiet, too quiet. No hum of engines, no movement, just the low echo of his boots on metal. After passing several sealed doors, he reached the command center. The door opened slowly with a hiss, revealing a dark room with a single glowing screen. A message blinked across it in old-style Earth script. Authorized access only. Project return. Phase 1 active. John stepped forward. The system recognized his biometrics. He wasn't sure how, but it granted access. A hologram activated. It showed Earth, then a vast star map. Thousands of red dots spread outward, representing incoming signals, not from known space. From beyond the edges of the galaxy, a voice began to speak, calm, human, recorded long ago. If you are reading this, then Phase 1 has begun. Project Return was not a war strategy. It is a survival plan. We have detected non-local signals, unknown life forms entering the galaxy. Their nature is unclear, but their numbers are massive. They do not answer hails. They consume every system they pass. John's blood went cold. The voice continued. Humanity did not flee the Council. We retreated to prepare, to protect. The Ghost Fleet remains hidden, awaiting full activation. We did not want war with the known galaxy, but we may all face war from the unknown. The message ended. Silence returned. Back on the Halcyon Blade, John sat in the pilot seat, shaken. He now understood. Earth hadn't left out of pride. They had left to avoid chaos while they prepared for a larger threat, something coming from the deep void. He activated his comm system and recorded a report for the Council. This is Commander John Walker. I have found proof that humanity is not planning an attack. They are preparing for a threat far beyond anything we've seen. I request an emergency council session. The galaxy needs to know the truth. As he set course back to Echelon Prime, John looked back at the black ship, one of many, likely scattered across the stars, silent, ready, waiting, and somewhere beyond the edge of known space, something was coming. The halcyon blade streaked through hyperspace, leaving behind the silent ghost ship and heading back to Echelon Prime. Commander John Walker sat in his seat, reviewing the recording again and again. Every word of the ancient message echoed in his mind. Unknown life forms, survival plan, massive numbers, consume every system. If he didn't act quickly, the Council would plunge the galaxy into war, all while the real enemy crept closer with every passing day. As the ship exited hyperspace near Echelon Prime, alarms sounded. Warning, Centra reported. Multiple warships detected in orbit, Zareth Dominion fleet present. Status, high alert. John narrowed his eyes. Valjek moved fast. The space around the station was now heavily patrolled. Zarethian cruisers glided past with their sharp, blade-like designs and dark red hulls. Fighters ran constant scans, targeting anything that moved. John was granted permission to land, but only after his ship was scanned 3 times and his ID confirmed. As he stepped off his ship and onto the landing bay, he was greeted not by allies, but by guards. 2 Aloon soldiers stood beside Councillor Rian, her feathers dulled in worry. She looked at him with tired eyes. "You're lucky you came back now," she said. "Valjek has called for a vote to launch a strike into human space. He claims the Dominion has proof of human warships mobilizing near-neutral systems." "That's a lie," John said quickly. "I've seen the truth. Humanity isn't preparing to attack the Council. They're preparing to defend us from something else." He handed her the data from the ghost ship, recordings, ship logs, the old Earth message. She took it without a word and turned to leave. "I'll bring this to the emergency session," she said. "But Valjek won't wait long. He wants war." The Council chamber was full when the session began. Delegates from dozens of species filled the circular hall. High Archon Valjek stood tall at the center, his long cloak trailing behind him like a shadow. "We cannot sit idle any longer," he said, his voice smooth and commanding. "Our station was destroyed, our people killed, and now we have confirmed movement in abandoned sectors near Earth's former colonies." He gestured toward a display showing blurry images of large ships, likely Ghost Fleet vessels, but shown without context, just enough to stoke fear. "These are not the actions of a peaceful people," Valjek continued. "We must strike now, before the humans strike us." Whispers spread like wind through the chamber. Some delegates nodded, others looked uncertain. John stepped forward. "Let me speak," he said firmly. The chamber quieted. All eyes turned to him. "I found one of the Ghost Fleet ships," John began. "I accessed Earth's hidden protocol, Project Return. What I found wasn't a war plan against the Council. It was a warning." He played the message. The room was silent as Earth's old voice spoke of the unknown threat approaching from beyond the galaxy. "This is what humanity is preparing for," John said. "They left to keep order, not destroy it. If we attack them now, we waste time and blood, while something worse moves in the dark." Valjek stepped forward, his tone mocking. "Convenient," he said. "A single human finds a secret message alone, and now expects the galaxy to believe that Earth is our protector." He turned to the others. "Do not be fooled. Even now the human fleets wait in hiding. Their silence is not peace, it is strategy." John stepped closer to Valjek. "And your fear is not leadership, it's ambition." The chamber erupted in noise, arguments, questions, demands. The vote was called for the next day. That night, John returned to his quarters. But before he could sit down, alarms blared across Echelon Prime. Centra's voice came through his communicator. "Emergency update: Zareth Fleet has launched a strike against Sector 5, former human territory. Multiple ships en route. No Council approval granted." Valjek hadn't waited. He had acted without a vote. John watched the live feed in horror. Zareth warships entering dark space. No response from human forces. No resistance, just silence. And then, a signal. One of the hidden Ghost Fleet ships powered up. Its hull lit up faintly, and within seconds a massive pulse fired, not as a weapon but a warning beacon. It spread through space like a ripple. Every sensor across the galaxy picked it up. It wasn't an attack. It was a signal Earth had kept secret until now. From deep beyond the edge of known space, a second signal answered. It was not human, and it was getting closer. The signal echoed through the stars, a sound unlike any known language. It was deep and rhythmic, like distant thunder in the vacuum of space. Every major listening post across the galaxy picked it up. Scientists scrambled to decode it. Fleet commanders froze, unsure whether to prepare for war or evacuation. On Echelon Prime, chaos filled the council chamber. "The signal is real," one delegate said. "It's not human," another whispered. "Where is it coming from?" Jan Walker stood at the center of the storm. The warning had worked, but not as he had hoped. Instead of calming the galaxy, it had thrown it into deeper panic. He activated his personal transmitter and patched into the central communication array of the station. His access codes, left behind by the human delegation, still worked. "Centra," he said, "link me into all active channels, all council frequencies, all civilian and military networks." "Are you sure?" the AI asked. "Yes, it's time everyone hears the truth." He took a deep breath and began. "This is Commander Jan Walker of Earth's former diplomatic corps. I speak to all who can hear me, military leaders, citizens, traders, and counselors." Images played behind him, the ghost ship, the hidden message, the star maps marked with red, signals from outside the known galaxy. "What you've heard is true. Humanity left the Council not to go to war, but to prepare for a greater danger. The project they called Return was never meant for us. It was for what's coming." He paused to let the message sink in. "We don't know who they are or what they want, only that they're not answering hails, and they're getting closer." He shifted the feed to the recording of the recent Zareth strike. Instead of listening, the Zareth Dominion attacked, and humanity responded with a warning, not weapons. They activated an ancient beacon, designed to detect movement in the dark. He pointed toward the screen. A single dot blinked, red, then blue, then red again. That response came from outside the rim of the galaxy. No known species, no identification code, but it heard us. The broadcast spread across thousands of systems. Civilian news channels picked it up. Military commanders put their fleets on standby. Even black market networks began sharing the message. Inside the chamber, Valzik stormed forward. "You twist this to suit your fears," he shouted. "You show old data and shadows, and call it truth. I say this is human deception." Jan didn't back away. "You say that because you're afraid. But look around you. Your own people are asking questions. They deserve answers, not your war." The doors to the chamber burst open. 3 Zarathian officers entered, weapons holstered, but their faces tense. The one in front, a senior commander by the markings on his armor, bowed his head slightly, not to Valzik but to the Council. "The Dominion military has suspended Valzik's authority," he announced, "effective immediately. We will not follow a leader who leads us blind into destruction." Gasps filled the room. Valzik looked stunned, then angry, but he said nothing. He simply turned and walked out, flanked by silent guards. Jan took the center of the room once more. "There is still time," he said. "We can contact Earth. We can prepare. We must stop fighting each other and stand together." Councillor Rian stepped forward and placed a hand on Jan's shoulder. "We have made many mistakes," she said, "but today we begin to correct them." Across the galaxy, fleets were ordered to hold position. Panic shifted to planning. Scientists and diplomats worked side by side for the first time in decades. Humanity did not answer the Council's messages, but their silence now felt different, not like a threat, but a warning they had carried alone for too long. The galaxy finally started to listen. The chamber was quiet. For the first time in months, no shouting echoed from the Council floor, no accusations, no fear-driven speeches, just silence. Commander John Walker stood at the edge of the great dome, looking out through the thick glass into space. Beyond the station, stars shimmered like they always had, but now he knew what waited in the dark between them. Since his broadcast, the galaxy had changed. The Zareth Dominion, without Valjic, withdrew its fleets from the human border. Other factions paused their disputes. Small alliances began to form, not for war against each other, but for what was coming. And yet, Earth still remained silent. Every day signals were sent toward human space. None were answered. Human colonies stayed hidden. Ghost fleet vessels, still active, did not move. They only watched. It was as if humanity had become a shield, silent, still but unbreakable. Inside the war room on Echelon Prime, John met with the new Emergency Defense Council. Delegates from over 40 systems were present. Military, diplomatic, scientific leaders. They studied the red dots growing across the outer rim. Every few days a new one appeared. Unknown ships, unknown signals. One scientist, a quiet, pale woman from the Irani cluster, spoke what everyone was thinking. "They're not just watching us," she said. "They're moving with purpose, slowly, patiently, like they're learning." John leaned forward. "We need a shared defense network, shared intelligence, no more closed borders, no more secrets." The council agreed. Plans were made, resources shared. Even enemies put aside their history, because now they faced something far greater. Outside the station, new satellites were launched. Joint patrols began in quiet corners of space. Ships that once faced each other in battle now flew side by side. John was offered a high command position in the new defense coalition. He refused. Instead, he asked for something else, a post on the edge of known space. He wanted to go back to the quiet places, to the far reaches where Earth's ghost fleet watched and waited. He wanted to listen, to prepare, because even though the galaxy had taken its first step toward unity, it was still fragile, still uncertain. A few weeks later, the Halcyon blade launched once again. John stood alone on the bridge, stars stretching in all directions. He did not know when the enemy would arrive, but he knew they would. Behind him, the galaxy stirred with life, united, cautious, ready. Ahead of him, the deep void waited, and for the first time in a long time, John Walker felt something new, not fear, purpose. He opened a channel to the listening posts. Commander John Walker reporting in, monitoring outer rim sectors. Still no movement. Eyes open. The stars gave no reply, but somewhere in the silence, something listened back.